Kabbalah referred to them as the 36, a concept that many regarded as nothing more than a footnote in Jewish mysticism or folklore. According to this belief, the existence of these 36 righteous people is what prevents the world from collapsing. Out of the 8 billion people on earth, one man was tasked with maintaining the count of the righteous. The most recent confirmed count was 28, and 3 more had died that month under dubious circumstances. Professor Malachi L. Ben-Yemen held a dual appointment in computational semiotics and diasporic theology at Howard University. However, he received his true education at a Hebrew Israelite camp where he was raised on the west side of Detroit. To Malachi, computational semiotics was a form of code-breaking rather than theology. He studied how meaning behaves in systems and how symbols replicate, mutate, or trigger outcomes. He believed that prayer was a form of structured symbolic input and a soft language API for the unseen layers of reality. Malachi's birth name was Aaron Sykes, a name he had not spoken since his father took him from his mother's apartment in Grand Rapids and disappeared into Black Bottom, Detroit. The camp referred to what the courts called kidnapping as deliverance, and gave him a new name, Malachi, meaning messenger of God. Malachi learned early on that his new name was his directive. At the beginning of a class, Malachi stood and watched as he repeatedly flicked the light switch, checked his watch, and waited. He then said, "Let there be light." The lights sputtered twice and then slowly brightened into a dim, progressive glow. Without smiling, he turned back to the lectern and began his lecture. He told the students that they likely believe that belief is personal, private, subjective. However, he asserted that real belief is contagious and that it organizes and changes things. He explained that prayer works and that when enough people agree on a thing's meaning, that meaning becomes architecture. Malachi continued by stating that mystics believed the world was iterative and a provisional one. The projector displayed a diagram of a spiral, an ancient Ouroboros overlaid with recursive code. He explained that every thought, every prayer, every agreement we make feeds the next version of reality, which is written by consensus belief. He said that the Hebrew word for world is olam, which also means a veil or a concealment. He described the world as a conditional render or a game state that runs iteratively. He then asked the students if they wanted proof that belief creates reality. He explained that when you pray to deliver us from evil, you assume it exists. In a system governed by symbolic consensus, this assumption is an invocation. He said that evil exists because we believe it must, and because we say it over and over, like code we've forgotten we're still running. He asked what happens when billions of people pray for vengeance, order, or protection. He answered that the system listens and compiles an answer. The next slide showed a medieval painting of robed figures in a temple with their eyes gouged out. Malachi explained that this is how the Cabal was formed, through prayers that begged for punishment, for purification, for consequence, and that we gave it to them with our mouths. A student asked Malachi if he was saying that things like the Cabal and the idea that reality is shaped through prayer were real. Malachi replied that he believed it was real like gravity, because you don't have to see it. You just have to measure its effects. He pointed to the screen behind him, which showed looping prayer cycles and time-stamped code fragments. He recommended looking at global emotional sentiment indexes and the effect of mass prayer events, political upheaval, broadcasted suffering, on reality. He emphasized that he was talking about a computational system with symbolic inputs and real-world outputs, not faith. A student with a yarmulke accused Malachi of platforming anti-Semitism and claimed that black Hebrew Israelites were classified as an extremist hate group. Malachi responded by clarifying that he spoke for a people who were erased before they were ever recognized, and that he did not speak for a distorted part of an older movement. He called the accusation a fragmented theology born from captivity, and asked if the students' churches could manifest truth. He mentioned the Falasha, Lemba, and Beta Israel who preserved Judaism in the wilderness. Malachi stated that his people had the book, had the bloodlines, but were told they had no right to borders. He concluded by saying, "If you think Judaism is a bloodline, and only you have it, you're the supremacist. Not me." He then presented a timeline showing the Babylonian exile, Roman conquest, African diaspora, and transatlantic slave routes. He stated that his people had oral transmission and memory, while the students' people had rabbinic infrastructure and scrolls. He argued that freed slaves in South Carolina taking up Judaic mysticism and Hebrew prayers in 1800 would be absurd if it was not prompted. He stated that these people's descendants were able to manifest their prayers and successfully return to Israel in 1990. Malachi explained that the language of the Kabbalah's earliest forms was not only whispered in synagogues but was sung in Ge'ez by priests in Aksum. He stated that prayer efficacy followed, where the language spread through pattern transmission. He showed migration maps of prayer formulas that traced from East Africa to North Africa, across the Sahel and the Atlantic. He concluded by saying that the diaspora updated the code. Malachi needed mystical coherence, which he defined as an alignment between language, thought, and emotion. He said that if enough people hold a concept with consistent internal logic and emotional charge, it has effects. He stated that the ancients encoded prayers as redundant signal structures to ensure signal durability. He explained that if mystical coherence is lost, reality forked, and the simulation begins iterating divergent conditions. He said that the 36 were resonators and nodes that held coherence to prevent divergence. He noticed a student laughing at his words and internally labeled him a dangerous variable who could not hold coherence. Malachi was the Shomer ha-Mizpar, or the keeper of the count, among the Hebrew Israelites. His job was to track how many of the 36 righteous, the lamed Vavnikim, were still alive and spiritually aligned. He stated that the world needs 36 of these people at all times and that if too many are lost, reality itself begins to break down. He said that the confirmed count of 28 was a dangerous number, and he did not know where the others had gone. As students left, a few clustered at the front with questions. One student asked if symbolic input meant AI, prompt engineering, or actual prayer. Another student, Lucas, asked if the 36 was a myth or a statistical model. Malachi capped his marker and told them that office hours were posted for Tuesday and Thursday from 3 to 5 and to come with arguments, not vibes. Lucas was the only one who lingered, and he was a young man in his early 20s with a medium build, alert eyes, and a patch of an Ouroboros on his black hoodie. He asked Malachi if he had ever presented a theory like that on the first day of class. Malachi asked his name and noted that he was not on the class roster. Lucas showed him his open laptop, with notes typed at high speed, and stated that the class was full, but Malachi did not kick him out. When Malachi asked if he studied theology, Lucas responded that he studied signal architecture and complex systems, with a minor in narrative analytics and cognitive psych. Malachi told him he did not belong there, but Lucas replied, "Still gonna come back." Malachi then told him to consider himself provisionally admitted. As he was leaving, Lucas asked if Malachi really thought the number 36 was literal. Malachi replied, "I don't think. I verify."